Hello everyone and welcome to the very first CampTMP Online lesson. So today's lesson is going to be about building an ensemble character, and it's going to be one of 5 parts. So it's going to be a really long series all about how do you build an ensemble character. So first let's talk about why it's important for members of an ensemble to have a developed character. If you've ever worked with me before, you know that's one of the most important things for me in general is that all ensemble members have a character. They're not just ensemble member 1, 2, 3. You need to know who your character is before you step foot on that stage. Doesn't matter if you're the lead or you are in the ensemble, you have a fully developed character. That's a non-negotiable for me. So we are going to talk about why and then how. So everyone on stage is a part of the story. You never go and see a show and well, I'm not gonna say you never have. You never should go and see a show and not know why someone's on stage. Every single person on that stage needs a purpose and needs to be a part of that story. And if they don't have a character, sometimes it can come across as, well, that's just a random person who just walked across the stage. No one should be just a random person walking across the stage. Ever. Period. So, not only does that make the show more interesting, but a lot of the jobs of an ensemble is to react to what's going on with the lead characters and to create that backdrop of the world. Well, if you don't know who you are, who your character is, what you're doing there, how are you going to react to the things that are happening? How do you know what you feel about the situation going on if you don't have a developed character? So that is the next most important thing, is it will help you determine your reactions. And reactions are part of the ensemble's purpose. So you need a character to be able to react because the ensemble needs to react for there to be a story. So we're gonna talk through the 5 lessons that you're gonna be going through in this series. Today's lesson is all about the basics. You're gonna get down to the nitty-gritty of what you need to know about your character at the bare minimum. The bare minimum you need to know going into this. So that's today, lesson 1, the basics. All right, lesson 1 is the basics. The next lesson, we're going to talk about how your character moves in their body. So that lesson is called physicality. In lesson 3, we're going to talk about the relationships your character has with people on stage. It could be other ensemble members, it could be the leads, it could be with the world, but we're going to talk about relationships in lesson 3. All right, then in lesson 4, we are going to talk about your character's intentions. What do they want the most in the world? What are they doing in this story? We're gonna get down to that nitty-gritty then. So that is lesson 4, intentions. And then in lesson 5, we're going to take everything that we've learned at this point and turn it into a more complete story. I'm going to get you to dive a little bit deeper into everything we've come up with. And so that's why that lesson is called Diving Deep. All right. So these are our 5 lessons, but today you are here for lesson 1, the basics. So, congratulations! You've been cast in a show. And I've decided to go to the show that our CampTMP family knows very well because either you've been in it, you've seen it, you've worked on it, or you've seen the movie. Today, you all have been cast in, drumroll please, from the comfort of your home, Frozen! We're going to Arendelle. As a whole CampTMP Online family, we are all in Frozen. You've been cast, not just in Frozen, but in the ensemble of Frozen. So what does that mean? That means we've got to build a character. That means the script is not just going to give you who your character is. You have to put in the work. So, the first thing you have to decide, and usually this will be decided for you, but today you get to choose, is which ensemble are you in? Because in any given show, there's usually more than one grouping of people from different places. So some shows only have one. If we're thinking about Mamma Mia, There's just everyone who lives on Kalikari, right? That's it. It's just the people. That's the ensemble. But if we get into a show like Frozen, it's a little more in-depth than that. In Frozen, I've picked out 4 main groups of ensemble members. So the first would be the people who live in Arendelle, the Arendellians, if you will. So we have the Arendellians. That may not be their official term, but it's the term we're going to use. The Arendellians, okay? Now, even more specific in that group of Arendellians, we also have the palace staff. Now, it's important to make that distinction because they have a completely different experience before and after the doors opened. So we also have the palace staff. All right. Now, when they open the doors for the coronation, they bring in some new people, not just the Arendellians. They bring in some visitors from other kingdoms. So you could be someone who came from far away. So a visitor from another kingdom. There's one last ensemble group in Frozen that hasn't shown up yet, and that is the hidden folk. So they may not be a part of the whole castle sequence, but they are a part of an ensemble that you could be in. So we also have the hidden folk. Now, obviously, in some of the productions we've done, we have included Elsa's Magic as an ensemble. We've had Water as an ensemble. We've had all sorts of different things as ensembles. But these are the 4 basic groups that in any production of Frozen that you're going to be in, these are the 4 ensembles that have to exist. Sometimes you'll be in more than one, but for the purposes of these lessons, you're going to just choose one. So I want you to go ahead and pause this video right now. Get a pen and paper so you're ready to finish the rest of this lesson. And the first thing you're going to write on that piece of paper is the ensemble you've decided to be in. So pause this video, decide your ensemble, and once you have written that down on your piece of paper, go ahead and press play and we'll move on. All right, welcome back. So, because you've now chosen your character's ensemble group. The next thing you need to do is, if you're on a cast list, it would be the first thing you would do, right? Because if you're on a cast list, this would already have been determined for you. But you did that first. Now the next thing that's most important is your character needs a name. You can't just be palace servant number 2. You need to know that your character has a name. So I'm going to give you some time to pick out a name. I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint of where you should look. Arendelle is based on Scandinavian kingdoms, so maybe you want to look up some old Scandinavian names. Maybe you just want to pick a name, right? The names that they use in the movie are definitely more inspired by Scandinavian names, but they're more subtle, right? They're ones that kids can pronounce. So maybe you want to go deep and actually find some like real old Scandinavian names, or maybe you want to pick a name that's just vaguely Scandinavian. That's up to you. So now you're going to pause this video. You're going to come back when you have picked out a name and you've written it on your paper. All right, now that you've picked a name, it's time to get down to business. We have a lot of things that we need to find out about your character. Now, there's a lot of ways you can do this. I'm going to give you some ideas. What I tell you right now that you need to find is just a bare minimum list. There are so many other things that you could determine about your character. If you think about you as a real person, there are so many facets of your personality and your existence and your history that are part of being a real person. You're going to want some of those things for your character. The list I'm giving you now is so small. I expect that once we start writing down some of these things, you're going to think of a million other things you know about your character, and that's okay. That's why we're doing these in separate lessons. After this lesson, if you think of more things before lesson 2, you can keep writing them down. You can come up with so many things about your character, and that is perfectly fine. If you come up with just this list, that's fine too. As long as you can portray a developed character on stage, that's what I care about. As long as when someone asks you how old your character is, where they're from, who matters to them most in the world, you know those things. Those are things that normal people know about themselves, that you could answer about yourself. As we go through this list, think about your own answers. These are things you instantly know about yourself. None of these are hard questions if I was asking them of you. They're only hard because I'm asking you to make them up for a made-up person. That's the only reason these questions are hard. If you were thinking about yourself, you'd know the answers in a heartbeat. If I asked you what's your name, you wouldn't have to go look on the internet. Today you had to look up ideas, and that's okay because that's a character. But eventually you're gonna have all this stuff that if someone came up to you and you were in character and they asked you, how old are you? You would know your answer as your character and yourself instantly. That's the goal of today, is that you are always as prepared to answer questions about your character as you are to answer questions about yourself. So this is just a little list of the things that I want you to have before we move forward. This is the bare minimum that you're gonna have. So the first thing you need to figure out, how old are they? Age changes a lot about how you play a character. You need to know how old they are. You are going to be a completely different person depending on if you are a 10-year-old or a 50-year-old. You don't do the same things at age 10 as you do at age 50. So you need to know how old your character is. What do they do for work? What's their job? Okay. If they work in the palace, they have a specific job. They're not just a palace employee. What's their job? Are they the one that's responsible for washing Anna's socks? Maybe it's that specific. Or maybe they're a cook. You can have something as broad as that, or you can be very specific about what their duties are. Either way, you just need to know what they do for work. What kind of home do they live in? So what's their house like? All right. Where is that house? So where do they live? Is their house in the city of Arendelle? Is it out in the woods a little ways? Where could they live? Are they educated? What's their level of education? Did they go to school? Are they still in school? Education has a lot to do with how you carry yourself as a person. So it's important to know how much they're educated. Now, this doesn't have to be in traditional education, right? There can be someone who has only finished high school and someone like me who's finished 4 years of college, and we could feel just as educated because there's not only one way of learning, right? Just because I have a 4-year degree doesn't mean I have any more intelligence than someone who doesn't. So that's more what we're looking at, is how much learning have they done and how does that affect how they carry themselves? Who do they live with? Who do they live with? So this could be the members of their family. Maybe they have roommates. Who are the people they live with? And what is their immediate relationship? So like, is it a mom, son, a best friend, a stranger? That's all I want you to do with relationships there. We're gonna dive deeper into those relationships later. But who do they live with? What do they do for fun? What do they enjoy? What are their hobbies? Okay. Do they have any fears? What are their fears? Who do they love most in the world? Who is their favorite person? Again, you don't need to explain why yet, just who. We're going to dive into the why when we get to the relationships lesson. But just who? Who's their favorite person in the world? And then some basics. What are their favorites? Their favorite color, their favorite food, their favorite sound, their favorite smell, their favorite place. What are their favorites? Give us some of those basics. All right, so go ahead and pause this video now and write down all these answers, brainstorm even more. This can be just a list like this. It can be a written out paragraph. You can write a story about your character, or it can just be random brainstorming, frantic writing, however it works for you. You're gonna write this all down. Get all this basic information, and then when you're done, go ahead and press play, and I'm going to tell you guys what comes next. All right, I hope you were able to get a lot of good information about your character figured out. I can't wait to see how you move forward with that in the next lessons. In lesson 2, we're going to determine how your character moves. So a big part of your character is how they portray themselves on stage. So we're going to talk about movement, and this is going to be based off of the things you determined today, the things we learned about your character, because things like age are going to determine how they move. Their job might determine how they move. Maybe they have an injury. Maybe they do a specific task. That will determine how they move. And then we're also going to talk at the beginning of the next episode on their physical appearance and how that might impact the way they move on stage. So all this information that we have today is going to keep building in the next 4 lessons. But these were the basics. So in lesson 2, we're going to talk about movement, and then we're going to keep building from there. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I can't wait for lesson 2. If you have any questions about the topics from lesson 1, drop them in the comments and I will answer them. If you don't have an account, you know my email. Email me your questions and I will get back to you. All right, I'll see you guys in lesson 2.